Hello and good morning. It's Phil Thatch, and today I'm supposed to be doing bird photography. This is my first trip out with my new Nikon Z50 II, and I was coming down to the Chickamauga Dam to do bird photography, and there's fog everywhere, and I love fog. And so, I always will bring landscape photography gear, or almost always will bring landscape photography gear with me, even if I'm planning on doing something else. And I've always loved this tree. I'm at the Chickamauga Dam. I'm at the upriver side of the Chickamauga Dam. I usually do photography at the downriver side, but I saw this fog and I thought about this tree right here in the background. Love this tree. I've attempted to photograph it. Can't get it in the frame. There we go. I've attempted to photograph it several times and have always failed to capture its beauty, but I think this fog may do the trick. So I put the 16-50 kit lens that I've had ever since I bought my original Z50. I put that on my brand new Z50 II, and I've been making some photographs of this wonderful tree in the fog. Here's my first picture of that amazing old tree, and I wasn't really happy with the earlier composition, so I kind of kept working on it for a while. But I still, even though this wasn't my favorite composition, I still liked it enough to share with you. This is 28 millimeters, 1/125th of a second, f5.6, and ISO 640 of the beautiful old tree. So I moved around a little bit to the left and stopped featuring the small tree in the foreground. In this one, there's some trees here in the background that are so fogged out that I kind of don't like them, but I shared this one with you as well. This is another shot at 1/125th of a second, 26 millimeters, f5.6, and ISO 450. Next, I moved around even further to where there were no trees in the background, and instead there was another hill in the background, which I really love the way that turned out. Now, to get this shot composed properly, I had to get down very low, which is hard to shoot really low when you're shooting handheld. And the reason I got down low is because I wanted this branch to not be touching this hill. I needed the separation between those two. And I think this one turned out really, really good. This is another 26 millimeter shot at 1/125th of a second, f5.6 and 360 ISO. And I love the color in this tree. It's autumn, it's late November, and this tree hasn't lost its leaves and it still has lots of color, but it's not overwhelming us with its color because it's foggy. The brightest color in the shot is the grass in the foreground, and the further away you go, the less color there is, and that also gives depth. So here's a similar composition to the previous one, but on this one I almost rule of thirds the tree. And it's also 25 millimeters, 1/125th of a second, f5.6, and ISO 360. I got down a little bit lower for this one. The branch is even further away from the hill in the background. I moved around still further and made this shot of the tree. Now, this is the one when I first looked through the pictures that I liked the most, and I edited this picture first and sent this one to Heather and some of my friends. But I think actually my very favorite one from the day is either this one or this one. But I still like this one as well. For this one, I sped my shutter speed up to 1/160th at where I had been shooting 1/125th. I wanted to make sure that there was no motion blur in these handheld shots. This one's 23 millimeters, f5.6, and ISO 400. Now I've moved all the way around to the other side of the tree. Now this side of the tree took damage. I don't know if it was wind damage or storm damage or lightning damage, but a good portion of the tree got knocked off years and years ago. As a matter of fact, the first time I photographed this tree is probably almost a decade ago, and this was missing even then. And usually this area of the tree, while it looks good in person, in photographs, I just can't get it to look attractive. Except in this shot, in the fog, I do think it looks attractive, the damaged area. And I also like how the branches that are closer to the foreground have more definition and the ones in the background are getting more and more foggy as they get further away. Pretty cool shot. There's a highway right over here, just you can't see it because of the fog. And over here to the right is a little path that leads to some of the recreation area there. I don't mind the path. I don't think it hurts the picture, but if you can see the highway, then it kind of ruins the picture. This one is 17 millimeters, 1/160th, f5.6, and ISO 360. I kind of like this little tree behind me too. It's a very small tree compared to the other one, and there's another tree in the background. Here's the small tree with another small tree juxtaposition behind it. This one I used 50 millimeters. I wanted to kind of compress the scene and make that tree in the background look a little bit closer. And I'm still at 1/160th f6.3 for this one in ISO 220. And here's the same tree that was featured in the last shot, except for now I'm looking back in the other direction. And here are power towers, which I thought this power tower in the fog actually looked pretty cool. And this tree behind the power tower is the main subject tree for most of the shots that I made this morning. I went down by the water and made a few shots of various things. I think some of them might be okay. Now I've moved to a completely different area, probably 150 or so yards away, maybe further. And I thought this tree had a lot of character, but it was difficult to get a composition of this tree that didn't have a bunch of man-made stuff in the shot. And I ended up with this particular angle on the tree. Although there is a parking lot right here and a garbage can right here and some trees in the background, I don't think that hurts the shot too much. This one is 41 millimeters, 1/160th, f5.6, and ISO 100. This man was walking his dog and I just quickly decided, oh man, I got to get a shot of this. And as he walked by, I made this one shot while he was in the frame. I wish the dog had been walking straight instead of sniffing around. This is 50 millimeters, 1/160th, f6.3, and ISO 160. And this in the background, this is the lake. But because there's so much fog, you can't see it at all. But the lake is maybe 30 feet behind him. I made a mistake this morning and only brought one of the many batteries I have for this camera. And I didn't even bring the good battery. I brought one of the older ENEL 25s, not the A version that comes with the camera. But the camera does have USB-C charging, and I have a USB-C cable to charge my phone. So while I'm moving to my next location, I'm just going to plug it in and let it charge a little bit. Now I've come down here to the downriver side of the Chickamauga Dam, which is where I like to do bird photography a lot of times. And I've made my first few shots using bird eye detect autofocus with this camera. I shot a couple of black vultures. I don't think those shots are going to be very good, but I also posted up on this rock right here. Oh, bumped my lens hood on it. And there's a great blue heron there in the distance, fishing on the shore with fog in the background. I think this shot might be pretty good. And this camera has the same problem that my Z8 does with wading birds, long-necked wading birds. The focus point, when you're in bird detect, will try to put the focus point on the bird's shoulder instead of the bird's eye. And I just used a smaller area and it found the eye much better that way, just like with my Z8. For all the rest of the pictures in the video, I switched to the 180 to 600 lens. I didn't mention it while I was in the field, but I'm not using the 16 to 50 anymore. I've switched to the 180 to 600. And this is a black vulture on the concrete that's right beside the boat ramp, and that's the lake, or actually the river, I guess, in the background. This shot is 490 millimeters, 1/500th of a second, f6.3, and ISO 800. And now here's a shot of the great blue heron at 360 millimeters, 1/500th, f6, and ISO 800. Just beautiful. I thought the fog really worked well in this composition. I like the just barely can see it tree in the background here and the bird standing in the water waiting for a fish to come by. Really like the way this turned out, and I made a few more in this area. Here's the next shot, and I've moved closer to the bird and I'm using less focal length. This one's 300 millimeters, 1/500th of a second, wide open at f6 and ISO 800. And like the previous shot, I think the fog really helps this photograph, makes the bird look really beautiful and kind of dreamy. Well, as usual, my boots are helping with photography. Took a lot of shots of the great blue heron in about a foot or so of water, which these boots are great for. Love these old boots. Now I've walked back onto the shore and gone upstream and come back out into the water in my boots to make a photograph of the great blue heron from the completely opposite direction. A lot of brush in the way in this shot, but I don't think it hurts it too bad. This one is only 250 millimeters. I'm still at 1/500th of a second, f5.6 on this one, and ISO 640. I've come down to the Curtain Pole Road area of the Tennessee River Park, and I'm walking along the sidewalk here. if you've ever seen one of my macro videos, you may remember the blue handrail, which I often get insects on, the blue handrail. But way before I started doing insect photography here, I did bird photography here, and I came down to see if there were any migratory ducks in the pond, and I'm not seeing any. There's some Canada geese over there. All I've gotten so far is a white-throated sparrow. This was the only photograph I got while I was at the Curtain Pole Road area, but I wanted to get some small birds instead of nothing but large birds like the great blue heron and the black vulture. So here is the white-throated sparrow at 600 millimeters, 1/500th of a second, wide open at 6.3 and ISO 1250. Well, it's been a struggle this morning. So I left the Curtain Pole Road area and I came here to the gravel road that leads to the Summit Knobs Equestrian Trail, which is a place I like to do bird photography in the spring a lot, but now it's late November. And I found a hermit thrush and made some shots of it. So that's really cool. I finally got kind of a special bird instead of a great blue heron that's pretty easy to find. Hermit thrush. This is a 600 millimeter shot. I'm still shooting at 1/500th, wide open at 6.3 and 720 ISO for this shot. Here's another shot on that same perch with the exact same settings. And here is one more on that same perch with the exact same settings. I think my favorite of the three is this one just because I like the tail poking up high in the air. And in all the shots, I like these berries that I think the hermit thrush may be thinking about eating. Now here's the hermit thrush on a completely different perch. This one is 600 millimeters, 1/500th of a second, f6.3 and 1400 ISO. And I have three different versions of this as well. This one is 1000 ISO and this last one is 900 ISO. I'm not sure which of these I like the best. Maybe this last one because you can see a little more detail in the eye on this last shot. And in all of these, I like these little berries that are bursting open. Really cool to see a hermit thrush today. Well, I have enjoyed my first day out doing photography with my new Nikon Z50 II. It's been a pretty good day. The fog was really special this morning. I was happy to finally get a picture of that tree that I like, or at least I hope I like. I haven't actually seen it yet. And got to do a little bit of bird photography, not nearly as much as I would like. Hopefully the sandhill cranes will show up soon at the Hiwassee Wildlife Refuge, and when and if they do, I will definitely take this camera and lens out and do that. So that should be coming soon on the channel. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching today. If you liked the content, take a second, reach down, hit the thumbs up. That helps me out a lot. If you want to see some more stuff like this with the Z50 II and lots of other cameras, subscribe and hit the notification bell. And as always, I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Bye-bye from the greater Chattanooga area.